Hello and welcome to the Circuit Breakers interview series. I'm your host, Steve Semler. Today, I'm joined by Nate Nordstrom, who's the founder of EasyBoard, a Minnesota company that created the EasyBoard app to easily engage your board and connect your committee's documents and meetings all in one place. Like it says, making that easy for the nonprofit. Nate, thank you so much for joining us today. Would you like to kick us off with a brief background as to kind of who you are and what you do?
Thanks for having me. So my name is Nate Nordstrom. I'm married. My wife and I have 5 kids. I live in Rochester, Minnesota. Um, Background, I've kind of always been an entrepreneur. My grandfather had a Christmas tree farm business in Nebraska, and among many other little side ventures that he did. And so I just kind of always saw and knew that it was possible to create a product or a service, and you didn't necessarily have to have a quote normal job. And I was definitely wired to just kind of come up with stuff. As a kid, I sort of thought in the future I'm either going to be a missionary and help people solve like big human problems, or an inventor. And I feel like I'm kind of getting to do both, which is pretty awesome. But yeah, that's a little bit about me, and I'm happy to go into any other stories. It's done a few crazy things. I even when I was a kid, I even made a coupon book for my brother, which he reminds me of to this day. A coupon book for my own stuff, and they had limited time offers. And I may or may not have pressured him to buying some of my stuff.
Yeah.
I'll leave you with this one. He really liked sweets, and I was more patient than he was. So I would buy a tub of ice cream, and then we weren't going back to the grocery store for another week. So I on one occasion, until my mom found out, I resold him the tub of ice cream half eaten for full price. So I got free ice cream. It was great.
Absolutely some entrepreneurship there, making, buy low,
I,
sell high.
I think I was 7 or 8 years old at the time.
Yeah. And you've built up a number of businesses over the years. I mean, so how'd you get started with the most recent one with EasyBoard and kind of what makes it like your favorite project if it is?
Yeah, great question. So EasyBoard. So we've been serving customers for about 13 years, doing custom websites and mobile applications, various work for smaller organizations around the community and larger organizations like Mayo Clinic, which you may have heard of, and it's the largest private employer in the whole state. And it's been an interesting journey. I mean, I literally started in an attic in probably the smallest house in town with a laptop and a phone, and just made some cold calls. And we've just slowly built year over year. We have built products, not EasyBoard, but other types of products before, as experiments to try to build something to solve problems that we saw in the market. EasyBoard is the most recent of those product experiments, probably fifth or sixth. And every time we built a product, we learned more about just how to roll something out and how to scale it and how to know what to build, and how to do sales and marketing and timing the market. And there's just a million different nuances and so many ways that these projects can fail. We basically had been asked by numerous customers as we were building their website to build something into the back end for them to publish board documents, share information with their board, etc. And so we would do that as we built their website, but it was kind of a clunky thing. It was still just a page on their website. And wouldn't you know, it didn't work that well, because like they would put the stuff up and then they had to maintain the web page, and then their board members didn't log in, and it wasn't great. So we started to think, I wonder if people would actually have an appetite for an application that actually is a tool that has automations built in and like is purpose built just to do board related stuff, documents, meetings, people, being able to search stuff. And I was serving on a couple nonprofit boards at the time, and also just really saw closely how they operated. And so we decided to give it a go. We didn't even have a name for the product initially. And so we just called it a board portal, and I would just show people. And every single time they would say, whatever you do, just make it easy, because my board members aren't going to like a new thing. and I have enough tools in my life. Like I don't need more things to figure out. So just make it easy. So we eventually decided, we did some research and saw, that's what people want. And that is sort of our philosophy to design with everything we've ever done has been user experience first. So we
Mhm.
decided to call it Easy Board and eventually acquired easyboard.com. That's a whole side story of its own. It wasn't cheap, but looking back, it was cheap. We paid about 16 grand for that. Um, it easily is worth that. But anyway, yeah, there's a bunch of side stories there, but the idea came from customers. I really think the best ideas come from customers. You just have to pay attention and ask.
Yeah, that makes sense. Um, oh, what are like the top two or three things that have made you successful?
Um, yeah, good question. I would say asking questions is probably the best thing I've ever done. I learned that in college, without going into a whole side story, but I had received a full ride scholarship to University of Nebraska Omaha for my SAT score. And I in high school I didn't study for really anything and I had good grades. In college it's different. Like you have to study and the professors will test you on stuff that was in the book but they didn't talk about, and it was a lot harder. Well, I didn't study. Well, I ended up almost getting kicked out of university for bad grades my first semester. I had a 2.01. A 2.0 gets you on probation. And they basically said, "What are you doing? You have a full ride scholarship. Like you're about to lose your scholarship." So, um, what I discovered was that that basically they said, "Hey, your scholarship is basically done." So I decided after talking with my parents and a lot of hard conversations and just stress, I just like thought, okay, well, what would it hurt if I just go ask? Let's just go ask somebody at the university if there's any way around this, and like maybe I can talk to somebody and get some grace on this. So, well, they said, well, you can write a letter to the regents board. Um, Funny enough, it was actually a board of directors, just like we're serving now. But I said, okay, fine. So I wrote a letter. I basically just said, I'm so sorry, and I'll do better. And then they reviewed it, and sure enough, they said, we'll give you one more semester to fix your grades. You had to have a 3.25 to keep the scholarship. And so they let me have the summer semester as well. And I switched from mechanical engineering to business and then biology and tried a few different things. But anyway, my grades improved. And at the end of summer school, I think I had a 3.27 or 28, just barely enough. And from there, I just actually kept on doing summer school, which was great. And just I was able to finish college a little bit quicker that way. But one of the really big lessons learned there was if you don't ask, you're never going to get it. And I'm very grateful that I learned that lesson. And I would say that's been really key. Faith is a really big thing for me too, as well. And so that's been absolutely key for me as well as my relationship with God, my family, just surrounding yourself with people that are smarter than you and don't try to be the smartest person in the room. Like I think if you're the smartest person in the room, you need to find a new room. Um, so I'm always trying to connect with people that are above where I'm at. And you can learn a lot that way too.
Yeah, and it sounds like you've kept learning all the entire time, like even since what you were telling me about a little bit before about your brother being 6 or 7 and the ice cream and stuff there.
Yeah, we've made up since I think, but
Probably just as well.
yeah,
Keep the family together. Yeah. I'm kind of on that topic of learning. I've recently returned to my roots to a certain extent with business simulations. And I've been using them to help small business owners find profit opportunities, kind of based upon stuff that's buried in the financials.
interesting. Yeah,
Um, because not all business owners come to it with an understanding of the financial picture, speaking the language of accounting or anything.
yeah.
I'm fortunate enough to have been able to do that. But you've had, I think, the opportunity to explore AI delivered sales calls recently. How did that
Yeah.
go, and what can you learn from that? That experiment.
Yeah, so I found the service online, and you could basically describe your product, put in your website or copy paste information from your website, and then have it call you. And it was crazy. It basically sold me my product, and I tried a bunch of different objections, and it actually answered them quite well. Um,
What?
and then if it didn't know, it just said it would connect me with a sales advisor, and it asked to set a meeting time. And then it sent me a calendar invite after the call. So I'm not using that service right now, but uh, yeah, I don't think it's going to be long before we have phone calls that sound real. I mean, robot phone calls, robocalls are a real problem already. I don't think it's going to be long before we literally have AI salespeople. And they said, hey, basically their sales pitch was, hey, so you saw the demo. Um, how many calls do you want to make? It basically said they could make up to 3,000 calls per second. And I'm like, yeah, that sounds powerful and also terrible. Like, what kind of world are we creating here? So yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to make of it other than these things are getting pretty good and pretty wild.
Yeah, it kind of comes back to the, I mean, I end up bringing up, there's a big difference between can and should.
Yeah.
Yeah, just like you're saying, what are we making up for ourselves if we kind of go that path?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we're all, I'm in tech persons. I'm always looking at what's new, what's the latest. I mean, we just the other day we used AI, just chat GPT. We pasted in some code that had issues. We didn't know what it was. We spent a couple hours trying to debug it already. Pasted it in, said basically what's wrong with this. Found the issue right away. There was a missing
Mm,
comma. I mean, it saved us literally hours and hours and hours of work. We paid $20 a month for the pro level of chat GPT. I mean, it paid for itself in an instant. So it's getting kind of crazy, but I mean, yeah, I use AI almost every day now, just almost as an assistant. Like, I'll paste in raw data or even an image, a
mhm.
screenshot of data, and say, hey, format this as a table. Hey, format it like this. Hey, add these things up, change this. You don't have to fiddle with your spreadsheet really anymore. You just tell it what you want. Now, what you do have to do is double check its output, because sometimes it says nonsense. Um, but that's going to keep getting better too. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And to a certain, I mean, there's kind of an argument of the kind of back and forth about um, AI is going to make us better critical thinkers. We're going to have to be, in order to
I'm
use it
afraid it
effectively.
won't, though. At least the younger generations can be like, oh, this is so cool. I think there's going to be way too much trust, especially once it gets better and better. When it quits saying nonsense, or at least it says something that seems plausible, it's almost like, why would you even check it anymore? And unfortunately, I think that's going to start creating some very real problems.
Yeah, and that's the flip side. Yeah, we
Definitely.
probably have already run into that.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Well, as the business landscape continually evolves, you mentioned listening to your customers and having the good ideas coming from your customers. What do you do to stay kind of adaptable and open to change and kind of like break that circuit of the routine that people can fall into?
Um, Yeah, I mean, I'm just naturally that way. I'm curious, and I want things to be better. And I know that things can pretty much always be better, whether it's our own product or their process, our process, whatever it is. So that can also create problems sometimes, because I am perfectly happy changing stuff all the time. And there are very good reasons why you shouldn't change things all the time. So there's definitely a balance. I think, uh, yeah, just having a mindset of being open and asking questions, being curious, assuming that you're wrong or at least partly wrong. Um, I don't assume I'm right. I know there's certain things that we've gotten right, but oftentimes that's after just a lot of listening and research and talking to customers. So yeah, we just try to talk to customers, try to really keep an open mind. Um, and certain things, there's a lot of different philosophies on like watching what your competitors are doing, but I like to be aware of what my competitors are doing, but on the other hand, we really don't pay a ton of attention. We really we pay a lot of attention to our customers. The other little hack that we've used to be open to change and just like making good changes is I go read the negative reviews of all my competitors, and they'll tell you exactly what they don't like and say, well, we're working on this feature, we'll solve that.
Yeah. Kind of negative competitive intelligence, so to speak.
I'd highly recommend it. I don't remember where I heard that idea, but some YouTube video, I think a couple of years ago. It's been fantastic. You should go read all the negative reviews of your own product, of course, but for sure of your competitors as you're developing new stuff.
That's probably a technique or a tip for folks, watching this one. You'll find that one. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Or
whatever it is that you're any kind of business, really, it works great in software, but it works just as well in. I mean, there was a local restaurant years ago that I was working with on some marketing stuff, and I mean, some of their issues were obvious, and I was kind of young and dumb and didn't really know what to speak up on, but also like there were some really common things that you could see in the reviews and the reviews of their competitors. It's like, hey guys, if we just solve this one thing, we're instantly way better. So like why are we ignoring that? Like you really need to pay attention to both the negative and positive feedback that you're getting, and keep an open mind on those things.
yeah. So it sounds like that's getting you the opportunity to spot a leverage point. It's not just you, it's the competitors as well. And if you can create a better, bigger competitive differentiator for yourself that way.
Yeah, and EasyBoard, for example, ultimately our biggest competitive advantage is we're the easiest to use platform in the world for doing what we're doing. And it's kind of odd, and for a while I didn't really think that was a competitive advantage. It's definitely how I've always thought and operated, but I've learned like it really is. And interestingly enough, at least in our world in software, I think it's actually the best competitive advantage, because ultimately me and everybody else in the space our team can build the same features as you can build the same features as me. It's just how we go about it. And our team is really good at making things really simple to use, which increases adoption and increases satisfaction, retention, all the things you would think of. The other thing that it really helps with is support costs. We have relatively low support costs because we don't have problems. Our customers don't get stuck. So I think user experience, in my opinion, is a very undervalued tool to grow a business, especially a software business, but any kind of business really. Think even like a retail or any kind of business like that. It's like, what's the experience walking in the door? How easy it is to do business with you? How do you feel walking in and out the door? Make those things better, and you could sell the same product as the person next door, but you'll win.
Absolutely. Yeah. And there's so much about the feeling or the emotional reaction of dealing with the service or the product. If you're coming away with some satisfaction and you're not coming away with frustration, that's a huge, huge difference.
Yeah, I've heard it said before that, basically customers won't remember what you said, they'll remember how you made them feel.
Yeah.
And that's basically the bottom line. So like at the end of the day, even if, that also works in the cases where you may say something wrong or you may like have got something wrong. If you make it right and treat them well, you've won a customer and probably all their friends.
Yeah. Yeah. So kind of on the flip side of the problems, if you could wave a magic wand over your business and make one thing better, kind of realistically speaking, what would that be?
My big goal this year is just more awareness of the platform. That's it. The more people that know about it, the more customers we end up getting, which makes sense. But our market is very under tapped, and most people aren't using a tool like ours. Retention on our platform is very high. Very few customers cancel year over year. So really it's just getting in front of people. Our sales approach is very low pressure. It's basically just, hey, I want an opportunity to show you how the platform works. We try to meet with board executive, board director, nonprofit executive, whoever it is that, and sometimes their assistant, it's whoever it is that manages and maintains the board meeting information and preps for board meetings. That's the person that feels the pain of this the most. And that's the person that we try to get in front of to show EasyBoard to. Once they see it, our close rate is quite high. It's roughly 50% say yes after that demo. So I'm just focused on awareness, and that's basically it. Focusing on awareness this year,
Yeah.
building
How big,
relationships.
sorry, how big does the organization have to be for it to make sense? For example, like an all volunteer board for, like a professional association versus like a school board versus kind of one of those full-time or at least fractional executive director or something.
Yeah, so our platform is really, we've discovered sort of the best audience is nonprofits with at least $500,000 of annual operating budget. And most cases, it's over $1 million. We have a discount for under $1 million per year, but it kind of depends on the size of the organization. So yeah, over $1 million, and then like I say, some in between the half to 1 million range. Other than that, our average board is probably 20. Well, the average is like 22 board members, I think, but that is skewed by the fact that some of our boards have a huge number of users, like well over 100. And some of those are like different committees and advisory groups and other things. So I would say we've discovered that like it really doesn't matter what the size of your board is necessarily, as long as it's at least 10, 12 people, they start to find it really valuable. 15 to 20 is great. And especially if you have a couple committees. But yeah, kind of medium-sized nonprofits typically with a board and some committees, but it does vary. We have some for-profits. And they're all over the map too. We've got health organizations, we've got animal wellness organizations, a lot of community impact stuff. We've got one in Florida that has a board that manages one drawbridge to an island. That's an interesting one. That's probably my favorite because it's so like you'd never think of it. We've talked with one, I don't remember, I think the conversation is still ongoing, but there's one that's like the Tall Ships of America. All they do is giant sailing ships. It's very fascinating. So, I mean, if you could, almost anything you can think of, there's a nonprofit for it. And like I say, we do serve for-profits too, but oddly enough, we found nonprofits are the most interested in getting the most value. So we're kind of all in on nonprofits, and which is also cool because we're really helping a lot of organizations improve their operations, which allows them to have greater impact. So in a way, we're sort of fueling, thousands and thousands of nonprofit impact makers, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah. It just puts me in mind of like the North Shore Scenic Railroad and the Duluth Depot Railroad Museum up in Duluth, Minnesota there too.
Museums, stuff like that. Yeah, a lot of those are our customers, and it's been really interesting. I would have never guessed there was so many different kinds of nonprofits out there.
Good point. Well, what's your top tip for aspiring entrepreneurs in the tech sector, who are just either starting out or facing challenges?
Okay, yeah. So on this one, the biggest issue I see, and it's something I've done before too, assuming, seeing what you think is a problem, keyword there is think, and then assuming that you have the answer, assuming there's the keyword, and then going and building something without talking to any customers, and then launching it, and then wondering why nobody's showing up at your door wanting your product. So for sure, the number one thing I would do, and we did with EasyBoard, is I would not build a single thing until all you need is basically a napkin drawing or a chalkboard drawing. Like it almost can look childish, and that's a good thing, because what you want to do is you want to go have, my rule for EasyBoard is I wanted to have at least 10 meetings. Now you could argue and say I probably needed more than 10 meetings, and I think that would probably be a valid argument. But I had 10 meetings with nonprofit leaders who were strangers, not friends. That's also important. And I
Yeah.
said, hey, here's the idea we're thinking about doing. Well, first I asked questions. Like I would start with questions and before you present the product, so you don't want to assume. After they sort of confirmed through the Q&A a little bit that yes, this is something they have a problem with, I presented the idea. And then I said, hey, we think our first year is going to be $1,200 per year. And we're more than that now, and the product's a lot more advanced, but that's where it started. And I said, so for the first year, if you're interested in this, would you be willing to put down a 50%, a $600 deposit? And that'll be basically, you'll get it at half price for the first year. But I want real money, and that'll lock in your spot. And then you'll also be a beta customer, and you got it at a discount, et cetera, et cetera. So 6 of those 10 of those first 10 meetings said yes and wrote us a check. And I said, hey, if we cancel the project or whatever, I'll just give your money back, no problem. The upside for us is that we'd been building products and people knew us in the community, so we already had a good reputation. That did help a lot. We weren't just some random team going to do this, but I still believe, I think it's absolutely essential. You got to get strangers to pay you real money for the idea before it's pretty. If you can't get that, I think you're going to struggle in 100 ways, because if it's got to be pretty before they want the product, well, then you're going to have a weak growth trajectory. I mean, there's 100 different aspects of that we could talk about, but you've got to get dollar commitments before you build anything. That's for sure number one. And then the other thing I would say would be, basically just asking lots of questions, looking for people that have money or resources and looking for opportunities, and even better than opportunities, just straight up asking them, hey, what are the biggest 3 problems you face in your business or in your organization? And don't assume anything, just start asking questions. You'll start to learn pretty quick, either everybody has the same problem, or their problems are massive things that you can't solve. You'll start to pick one and then just pick it and say, hey, if I solve this for you, would you pay me actual money? If they say yes, we'll say, well, then write me a check. You need real money on the line, because everybody will tell you, oh, it's a great idea. That's cool. That's very nice. Everybody will tell you that. They'll only write you a check if they're serious.
Yeah. Yeah. That is good advice. And it just matches up with the kind of that rapid design, rapid prototyping thing. And like you're saying earlier, listening to the customers, listening to the market, letting that drive you forward.
You've got to get customers before you build anything, for sure.
Yeah.
And then when you do build something, you better make sure it's really focused on that problem, and just that problem to start with. You'll have a million ideas of what you want to do with it someday, and that's good and okay. But all of those things need tabled so you can stay focused as you build. I'm a big fan of building products that are, revenue first. We bootstrapped, and I would definitely do that again. It's the way to do it, I think.
Makes sense. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Nate. I really appreciate the opportunity to hear some of the stories and how you've made it work there, and to learn more about EasyBoard as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. And the website is easyboard.com, just like it sounds, or just on my fancy new shirt. There's another random tip for you. Don't buy swag. I just got this shirt like a week ago, 2 weeks ago, something like that. Don't buy swag until your product is like actually growing and actually a real thing. And there are a couple of reasons for that. Is one, it just makes you more focused, and two, there's so many ideas. I think it's like batting, like the best pro sports players in the world, the best baseball players, they miss more than they hit. So you just expect to be wrong a lot. And you don't waste your money on stuff like this until something's actually really working.
Yeah.
But it is kind of sweet to have your own little swag, custom swag. And it got to be me and one of my designers designed the logo, and it's fun, but you're wasting your time if you were focusing on that first.
Yeah, good point.
So yeah, easyboard.com, and I'd love to show you a demo, or Nick on my team is awesome, and he'd love to show you a demo too.
Yeah.
If anybody has any ideas or feedback or anything else, you can find me on LinkedIn, just Nate Nordstrom, and you'll know right away because you'll see Easy Board all over it. So
Yep, and check the details, check the info here, with this video as well, because we'll have that there too. Great. So for those watching, when you're faced with challenges in your own organization, when you're starting your business, consider these tips and what Nate shared here. And of course, reach out to me for coaching and support. As always, I'm Steve Semler, FocalPoint Business Coaching and LearningSim, helping techies be great leaders. Look forward to seeing you in our next episode. Thanks.